Welcome back to D.C. Today. BNC exclusive now. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs speaking out about the other side of the pandemic. 218 of our nation's honored take their lives each and every day, sometimes due to COVID, other times due to the ongoing opioid crisis that America seems to have forgotten. Veterans Affairs Secretary Denis McDonough and I talked about the terrible toll this is taking on veterans of color and the vaccine rollouts among those who have served.
We've actually overperformed our expectation among our black vets. We're kind of doing about as well as the rest of the government as it relates to Latinx vets. And so one of the big challenges we'll face going forward is to keep those numbers of black vets at the levels we've had, and then make sure that we're making progress in our rural and highly rural vets. That's one of the places that we're really focusing on now.
Secretary, and I was curious about that. Why do you think you're doing better than the overall population with regards to black vets? Because going into this, there seemed to be that issue of vaccine hesitancy. And yet, when I talk to an awful lot of African Americans, and specifically a lot of African American veterans, my father was Korean War, they don't seem to be that hesitant because, let's be realistic, they got a lot of shots when they signed up.
One is making sure that we're showing up where our vets are. And we do that through our scheduling at our local facilities. We're also doing that in our use of what we call mobile units. And so our mobile units are going out, yes, to rural and highly rural areas, but we're also going in other urban and suburban areas as well. And so we're going where our veterans are. And then the last thing is we're just telling the story about the experience that they have. And in fact, in the day of social media, as you know, even if we weren't telling a story, people would be telling their own story. And we're making sure that people understand now, with more than 2 million veterans with really very little negative impact, we actually have a very good story to tell about the opportunity that the vaccination gives. And so we'll stay on top of that, making sure that people see that real lived experience. And so far, it's going pretty well.
Yeah, the other side of the coin is the suicide issue. I was looking at the statistics, 20% increase in suicides among veterans during the COVID pandemic. A lot of them saying this actually resembles a war zone. How is the battle against veterans committing suicide going?
It's heartbreaking. And any individual suicide is a tragedy. And we want to make sure that we are not just seeing the numbers go up as we've seen in the context of the pandemic, but we're actually turning this trend. And to do that, we're going to have to do a number of different things. One is to underscore that getting mental health care is not something to be embarrassed about. Getting mental health care is the same as getting treated for a twisted ankle or a busted knee or getting stitches. Mental health care is part of whole health care. The second thing is we have to make sure that we do as well for our veterans who are not in our care as we do with those who are in our care. When they're in our care and they're getting access to integrated services, we actually do better than the vets who are not. And so to do that, we're going to use some of the new tools that Congress has given us to provide support to local communities who know their vets best, to get their care closest to them and get their care in places where where the vets trust the assistance they can get. But you're right, this is a major priority of the president's, a major priority of mine, and we're going to stay on top of this until we get it right.
And that's Veterans Affairs Secretary Denis McDonough, who not only wanted to address the needs of the black community, but also accepted a rather unique challenge from BNC that had to do with another story you saw only on this broadcast. More on that a little later in the week. And when we come back,